Hello, researchers. Welcome back. This is the first lesson in a series of three on descriptive statistics. We'll talk about central tendency, then we'll talk about variability, and then we'll talk about graphing. Okay, so measures of central tendency. And this isn't gone into very much detail in your textbook. Um, yeah, so I'm drawing from a few different sources for this video. Some definitions. Measures of central tendency are statistics that summarize the central or typical value of a set of data. The three most common measures are the mean, the median, and the mode. Essentially, they are three ways of describing the average or most common value. A percentile is the point on a scale at or below which a specified percentage of the scores fall. Okay, so where at at where yeah where the a percentage of the scores are below that percentile. Okay, mode first. The mode is simply the most commonly occurring value. Okay, and usually there's a clear winner, and it's often used with nominal data. So, for example, in this first row of numbers, we got 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 5, 7, 9. 1, there's a clear winner. The mode is 1. Sometimes you might have two values that are adjacent that are both the mode, they're the most commonly occurring values. And in this case, it was 1 and 2. And you could since they're adjacent, you could say that the mode is 1.5. There may be more than one mode, particularly when there are two modes that are not adjacent. Um, um, if you graph them, it would look like two peaks, and we're going to look at something like that later on. Um, in this example, for example, in this example, for example, there are three ones and three nines. So there are two modes, a 1 and a 9. The modes are 1 and 9. Quick way to find the mode is to sort your data in Excel. You go to the data tab and then it says A to Z sort. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be letters. Okay, it could be numbers. And if you highlight the cells that you want to sort and then you click the A to Z and down arrow, it will sort from lowest number to highest number. And so you could just sort your data and look for the value that has many instances. In this little illustration here, looks like the variable name is strong anxiety and the values are 0, 1, 2, or 3. The mode there, most people are do not have strong anxiety, most people in this sample. And so 0 was the mode there. Another way you can identify the mode is to choose the highest bar on a histogram. And we're going to be talking more about what a histogram is. But basically, it's a bar graph of frequencies. Here you see that same data is shown on a histogram right here. So 14 zeros. Um, and here we have the percentage of men spending at least 1 hour per week participating in sports or exercise by age. Okay, and we see, let's see, the one with the highest percentage is that it's 16 to 24-year-olds. Probably not a surprise that high schoolers and college students, young adults, are spending at least an hour per week in sports or exercise, whereas others maybe don't have as much free time. Okay, wait, already did that one. In Excel, you can do a formula for like let's say at the bottom of your column, you might write equal sign mode dot mult, and then the range, the columns Okay, so let's say A2 to A24 would be in the parentheses. And you may need to give not numeric values to non-numeric cells. If you have more than one mode, you highlight a range of cells, click click on the formula and hit Control Shift Enter, and that'll allow it to show more than one mode. Okay, but usually for mode, uh, yeah, first of all, we're not using mode a lot. Some advantages and disadvantages. Advantages for the mode: it's not influenced by extreme scores. It can be used with all data types. A disadvantage is that it may not represent a large portion of the scores. It's just whichever category or number was most frequent, and it ignores extreme values completely, and you cannot use it to compute other statistics. Okay, now let's talk about the median. This is the centered value in an ordered series. So it's the 50th percentile. Okay, 50% of scores fall at or below this, whatever the value is. Okay, and so the median, you have a normal distribution, the median is going to be right in the center. If you have a skewed distribution, it's going to be wherever that 50th percentile hits. Okay, so it's going to be wherever you've accumulated half of the values. To figure out the median, we're going to sort the values, and if you have an odd number of scores, it's just the one that's right in the middle. So in the first example, the 3 is right in the middle. It's got 4 numbers on one side, 4 numbers on the other side. Okay? If the numbers are even, you take the average of the two center values. And whereas mode could be something like 1 and 9, okay, if it's bimodal, median it can't because it's where the 50th percentile is. And so you could take the average of the two center values, and because this is an ordered series, that's your median. Quick way to find the median in Excel, you can sort, okay, um, and find the center cell, right? Also, there's a formula. You can do equal sign median and then the range, again, like A2 to A64 or whatever it is. I can tell you what the median is. And this says D2 to D24, okay? So I would put that, somewhere underneath my column. Relative advantages or disadvantages of the median. Now, and an advantage is that it's not really influenced by extreme scores. So if you have that one or two scores that are just way out there, um, then it's not really influenced by that. The median is a reasonable estimate of what most people mean by the center of a distribution. Also, it can be used with ordinal data. Okay, you can find the center with ordinal data. It doesn't it could which with categorical ordinal data. Okay, it doesn't have to be continuous data to use the median. Disadvantages, you may not want to completely ignore extreme values, and also you can't use it in many statistical equations. Many statistical equations require the next thing, which is the arithmetic mean. Okay, this is what we usually are talking about when we say the average. It's denoted as x with a bar on top, so x bar. And it's calculated as, remember I told you we're going to see that summation sign as, x bar equals the sum of all the x of i's, okay, x sub 1 plus x sub 2 plus x sub 3 plus x sub 4 plus, all the way to x sub n, whatever the number of the number of items in your sample, divided by the number of items in your sample. Okay, the average, right? This is what we're used to talking about when we're talking about average. We add up. We want to know what the average test score on the score that we gave last week, on the test we gave last week. We add up all the scores. We divide it by how many kids took the test, right? This is our most commonly used statistic. It's the most commonly used statistic in just period. It'll be our most commonly used measure of central tendency, and it's just like the most, it's used all the time. Okay, calculating the mean of in Excel, it could be, you could do it like our X bar equation. You take the sum and then the range in parentheses divided by the count. Okay, how many items of data are there? How many participants? Okay, the count and the range. Or Excel has a quick little formula that you can use, equal sign, average, and then the range. So if I wanted to figure out the mean height of our class or the average height of our class, let's say there are 15 students in our class. I could, if I had this data, if I surveyed you all, and let's say there are 15 students, and I have the list right in Excel. I can do count height, count whatever's in that column, that height column. Sum what's ever in that column, and then do my formula. My X bar formula is the sum, that's that sigma symbol, sum of height divided by n, or the number of participants or items in our sample. X bar is the sum of this variable height divided by the count of height. And then I could say then that the average height of the members of our class is so many feet and so many inches. Okay, yeah, if I converted it to feet and inches after doing my calculations. I'd probably have it all in one, like all ask the class, how tall are you in inches? And then in my final sentence, when I'm trying to, make it sound more natural sounding, I would convert it to feet and inches. Advantages of the mean. It's the most commonly used statistic. It's what people are most familiar with. It's easily manipulated algebraically, and it's good for computing other statistics. Some disadvantages. It's too easily influenced by extreme scores. If we had one person who was uber tall in our class, they would pull our mean up. It does not represent the skewed or multimodal nature of some distributions. So you don't really know what the shape of the distribution is with the mean. And it requires some faith in the interval properties of measurement. So it requires faith that the data scale or the scale of measurement that was used is actually continuous. It only really works with continuous data. How do we know which measure to use? If the data is continuous, if it's interval or racial, if it's or ratio, if it's symmetrical, if it has a single peak, the mean is the least biased estimator of the population. Okay. Check the mean first and use the mean if you can. If the data is ordinal, if it's categorical ordinal, if it's skewed, the median may be preferred. Okay, if you have a choice. Use the mode only if the data is nominal or your question specifically asks for the most frequent value. Okay, so you're using the mode when you can't use anything else because it's nominal data, and or you're specifically being asked for the most frequent value. So, if we wanted to discuss performance on the next class test, um, let's see, what measure would you use? Probably use the mean. Okay, performance on a test. If I wanted to say, yeah, I'd probably use the mean when I'm talking about test scores. Okay. For graduate students, the measure of average income that's most appropriate. For income, most of the time when someone is asking, hey, I wonder what the average income is of folks who live in Augusta, let's say. Most of the time, what they want to know is the median, because the median gets rid of those extreme values. So in Augusta, you have people that of all walks of life, right? And you even have some surgeons who do like cardiovascular surgery or something and are making, large sums of money, right? But the average person living in Augusta is not a cardiovascular surgeon, right? And they're not making cardiovascular surgeon's salary, right? So the median would reflect kind of the middle value for income. For graduate students, many of you are in the same profession, right? So the scores may be clustered, are more likely to be clustered closer together, and the mean would probably work just as well. There probably isn't someone whose income is way, way out. All right. Okay, so those are our three measures of central tendency. Okay, see you next time.